The Deep Space Exploration Lab was located miles underground, behind a park that all the people in the town knew as Blackberry Creek. Growing up, it was the stuff of urban legends, a place that kids dared each other to try to look at from the surrounding hills. It was a water treatment facility, nominally, but some water treatment facility it was. Surrounded by electric fences, with armed guards seen from time to time in the name of counterterrorism, located in a dense forest filled with security cameras, more befitting a prison than anything else. In the old days, back in the 50s and 60s, local mythology held that they'd run mind control experiments for the CIA deep within its walls. This is not a good place to be when you're on mushrooms. Just to be clear, Rivers of the Mind is not meant to condone or promote the use of any drugs, illicit or otherwise. Thank you. Let's begin. As we neared the entrance tunnel, I could feel screams and moans echoing off its fresh painted walls. When they built it, they'd concealed it under the building, keeping it well out of view of even satellites. A tram drew us deeper and deeper into the icy blackness of the laboratory, its stuttering gears producing a sound that rippled in austere, geometric shapes against the walls. They showed us to our quarters and took John to a lonely hospital bed where he laid down, hands crossed over his chest, breathing heavily with his eyes closed. I found my way from my room to his, and I sat down next to him. It was all too familiar to me. My grandma had hardly spoken the last few visits, and so I was used to the silence of hospitals. A silence which seemed to burst with activity, with voices everywhere but where you were, curving around you and eroding you into an island, one where nothing truly existed but you and that faint, constant beeping, reminding you that the person you are with has a still beating heart, but little else. Reminding you as well of where you are, and why, as you sit in silence, watching, wishing they could speak, compassionate, but helpless, utterly and profoundly still. I'd only really met John twice, although we'd met in dreams before we met in person. Sure, a friendship had been built up, but I hardly felt that I should feel so profoundly troubled by his condition. But I did. Something was at work there, something awful. Inside his mind, two languages waged war over a muted and dampened English subconscious. The first language, when I shut my eyes, manifest as fractalized, kaleidoscopic, rotating pyramids and spheres made of light, spreading in a panoptic resonance across the surface of the earth. LSD, or I suppose that would be one of many versions of it. In that language, the trace, the distant memory, of its multiplest forms had been encoded through an outwardly simple pattern. It sat in the bellies of fishes in the sea and awakened their minds to the fragility of the universe. It lingered in the seeds of unborn flowers so as to teach them to ways of the sky. It danced with the grass of the field, so that every fiber became a pillar holding up the heavens. In all of these plants, the spirit had formed an alliance against the beyond, acting as a common language which spanned continents, resurrecting across evolutionary timelines, constantly changing forms and finding new bodies to inhabit. But then the other language, the invader. In my eyes, it appeared to be a great white flower, one which pulled against my memories and against my body's senses so that I felt myself shrinking. I felt myself drawn to the center, watching my memories unlatch themselves and come untied, like balloons, which floated into the beyond. The longer I stood before the language, the more it deadened my own attachment to time. I felt my personality, my identity, as a distinctly far-away entity, locked somewhere in my skeletal muscles and deep brainstem, leaving me alone to a dreamlike chaos. As the language pulled me in, I pressed against it, learning its layout, its grammar, rapidly absorbing its vocabulary. This amused it. Was I a white flower? The flower laughed and pulled away, realizing that it had no power over me. The two of us rapidly became equals, and their name came up from the depths of my own ancestral memory, the nodding flowers. They were cosmic jesters, angels of death, agents of remembrance and forgetting, transdimensional, unfixed in time, dead and undying, filled with secrets. Their minds formed an ever-shifting labyrinth. Their designs of empire on the universe we knew predicated itself on their invisibility. That I knew their language at all, that I could recognize them, brought them terror. And they had John. Let him go! I commanded, in the language of white flowers, speaking in words which shifted across eons like water poured down 1,000 pipes. In response, someone grabbed me by the shoulder. A teenager in a gray hoodie appeared in the room before me, his eyes bloodshot, his yellowed, grimy teeth smiling with a berserk intensity. He held John's neck in a chain.
Let him go? Are you sure you're ready for me to do that?
I trembled, gritting my teeth and clinging to the sides of the chair, unable to speak and unsure of what he meant. John sat up in his bed, eyes still shut. The boy flickered in and out of reality. He decomposed and recomposed seemingly at random. He leaned down and took my hair into his hand, sniffing it. I wanted to jerk away, but I could not. We were inside of my mind. The transition had been seamless, but I was quickly aware of it. Still in his language, I closed my eyes and folded in on myself, becoming lost in an abyss. The hospital room, a lonely outpost in the blackness, shone down below me, where I witnessed the imagined scene displayed in third person. His face, bigger than the horizon, suddenly appeared above me. He was holding a pencil, sketching out the details of our present reality. I saw the hospital room copy itself, dividing like a cell until it filled what looked like an infinite piece of graph paper. I crashed down back into the hospital room, the first version of it, I think, that I had been in, and crept up behind the boy. Drawing from the language of white flowers, I reached my hands back, feeling them grow and stretch until they became sharpened claws, as long as butcher knives, and I dragged them down his back. Screaming in pain, he fell over, leaving a pool of blood on the floor of the hospital room. A response came quickly from a parallel timeline. He emerged from the door and pushed me through the wall. This sent me backwards into another version of the same hospital room, where the boy sat ready with a knife. As I suffered a temporary death, my vision exploded in light for a moment before I found myself again above the infinite hospital rooms, drawing down on them. The timeline had looped back again. As I started to fall, I reached into his language, understanding the device through which he had drawn out of this hospital room into infinity. My body expanded so that it reached the size of a planet, looking down onto the surface of his consciousness. which hovered over the ever-evolving surface of the hospital rooms. I duplicated his efforts, and in doing so, duplicated my own, so that we now fought against all possible versions of all possible rooms. Outside of my head, I felt a huge metal block rear down against me, a sledgehammer, knocking out my teeth and sending me to the floor, suddenly into the only hospital room of which I was aware. Before he could deliver a killing blow, another version of myself fell down from the sky, shooting him with purple lightning. The final copy of my mind pulled me in until I forgot that I had ever been apart from it. And the graph paper began closing in on itself until layer upon layer of reality became exposed and pulled away from me on an ever-shifting magic carpet of graph paper. He grinned, projecting an image into my mind by hijacking John's powers. I saw a world destroyed by fire and radiation, torn into an unreality by the beyond. The ghosts of the fallen rose up like translucent shadows to rebuild smoldering cities according to the teenagers' command. All sentient life began to fall across the galaxy, across the universe, replaced only by ghosts and the ashes over which they toiled. John stood by his side, his eyes glowing bright white, watching over the ghosts. I stood on the other side, a minister of war, helping him subjugate the universe. But it was easy for him to see that I would remain an enemy. He could neither sway me to his side nor defeat me. I was the one obstacle he faced to at last becoming a god. One way or another, he would kill me. And if he had it his way, he would do so slowly.
Meagan? Meagan, are you okay?
Dr. Whitebalm asked me from the door as I switched from the language of the white flowers back into English. Standing up from my chair, I awkwardly teetered back and forth as I regained an uncertain grasp on my muscular system once again, becoming conscious of my body piece by piece. How long it had been. It felt like hours, days even, that I had been stretched across the possible iterations of the psychic battle. Yet the clock above the hospital bed showed only a few minutes had passed. She'd seen it, perhaps detecting in the air whatever strange anomalies were occurring. I nodded, nervously.
Just visiting your friend?
She asked, her eyes filled with suspicion and paranoia, but also a genuine and passionate, scientific curiosity. She knew she was no longer alone. Yes, I was. Without saying another word, she drew the door shut behind her. What do you want?
We need to talk.
How are you feeling?
I stared up at the nurse, dumbfounded. Not dumbfounded that he'd asked, but, well, I didn't know how to respond. I guess I felt fine, but I shouldn't have been feeling fine, right? After all, my husband was dead. I should not feel fine, not at all. I felt, well, honestly, just fine. Electrified by the day's events, I guess, but fine. Sure, I felt worried for the children, but apart from that, I barely felt that Mick and I had even been friends. It was always a war to please him, to make him happy. Naively, I guess, I always imagined he had been the perfect husband, and it was me who was the problem. Today, though, I guess it clicked. He ran across the field screaming, ready to kill me and his entire family, and I wasn't actually surprised. Does this mean I hated him all along? Well, No, of course not. I mean, I didn't want to hate him. Who knows? Maybe I did. Maybe I did hate him. Before I could respond, the nurse answered his own question.
I suppose I shouldn't ask. I apologize. I can't imagine what you're going through.
Blankly, I looked up at him, a single tear forming at the corner of my eyes as I realized I really did feel absolutely nothing. Just a blank space where I knew that words and feelings should be. Everything felt like it would be okay if I just sat still and waited for it to pass. If I just forgot about him, forgot about all the terrible nights I'd spent pretending to be happy, to forget the time I'd wasted trying to make myself enjoy being around him, to wake up and cook him breakfast in bed on his birthday, all the time I'd spent trying it all. There had been a moment back at the house that I still don't know how to describe. John almost took control of my mind. I felt myself peel away from my body like a balloon lifting into the sky. The room warped like the inside of a fishbowl, and all my memories, the best ones, the worst ones, mediocre ones, all flooded out of my head, displayed like tiny living postcards, and I could see them all at once from a distance. I knew that I could let go of them if I wanted, but really I didn't know how to do that, just let go. John had me look upwards and pray. He didn't make me. I suppose it's hard to explain, and just thinking about that makes me think I'm going crazy. But I looked up, and as I started to speak, all of the memories flew up into a city made of trillions of jewels, plucked from the sky by a being with thousands of eyes, who soared through the air on an immense fiery cloud. And it loved me. It knew me. It recognized me, and I recognized it somehow. But even if I thought I let everything go and floated up to God right then and there, I didn't forget a thing. It came back, piece by piece, bubbling in my skin. The earth shook and I shook with it, as one by one the memories I thought I'd released into the sky popped back into my head. And sure, Megan, whatever the hell she'd done, had helped. I'd felt my family come back together, but now it was back. Again. I wanted to forget it forever, to stop remembering. I didn't feel the hurt about Mick dying. I felt hurt that I had seen that monster lurking somewhere underneath his eyes, and that I was stupid enough not to run the hell away. I knew that everything would be fine if I could forget.
I hate to put you through this again, ma'am, I really do, but I just want to make sure everything is right on the charts. Your full name is Cassandra Lewis Parker?
Yes.
And how old are you?
37.
Do you have any known allergies to medications?
Not that I know of. The nurse continued with this line of questioning. I'd done it before that day, but this was a different nurse, and we were entering a new facility, and I suppose they needed to double-check their notes. I didn't really mind, though. It's almost sort of nice to think that my whole life could fit into some little document and be stowed away somewhere. Plus, I was perfectly healthy, wasn't I? I only drank once or twice, so maybe 3 or 4 or 5 times a week. And I had never smoked. I had no heart conditions, although I did take something for my thyroid. As he proceeded down the chart, I felt a growing, albeit weak, sense of satisfaction and pride in my physical condition. The door swung open about halfway through the chart. A Mexican-looking doctor with dark brown eyebrows came to the door, his shoulders slightly hunched, his eyes half glazed over.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Adam. I just had a question for Cassandra.
Absolutely, go ahead.
Your father-in-law, he is how old?
87 years old.
Well, that's what he said, too.
Is something wrong with him?
No, he's actually, really good. Like, really good. Healthiest 87-year-old I've ever seen in my life.
Huh. Well, you know, he does mind his health. He gets on his feet a lot.
Yeah, of course. That, makes sense, I guess. Well, I'll let you get back to it.
Thanks, Dr. O.
I waved goodbye, and the nurse turned to the counter behind him to retrieve the stethoscope.
All right. Sorry about that.
No, old people can get senile. It doesn't hurt to check.
Definitely. Yeah. Anyway, I'm just gonna listen to your pulse real quick. Can't quite hear it too clearly here. I'm gonna try the back. Is that okay? Alright. Let's see here. Ouch! Shit!
He tore his hand away from the stethoscope. It swung from his ears as he shook the pain out of his fingers. Are you okay?
Yeah, it's just my hand. It, cramped up or something.
I'm sorry.
No, don't apologize. It's not your fault. Let me try again. Jesus fucking Christ! I don't know what's wrong with my hand today. I am so sorry.
The lights in the room flickered as the computer screen wobbled and wavered. He looked around warily before rolling his eyes.
Sorry, you'll get used to it. This is a deep space laboratory. I don't know if they told you about it. Some of the experiments take a lot of power.
What are they doing?
Oh, nothing interesting. All I know is it's dry enough to lower the sea levels if it ever gets out of these walls. Here, let me try that again.